Throughout my career, I've taught at 3 different schools, first as a student teacher, then in 6th grade, and now in 2nd grade at what I can generously call the neediest school in town. Many of my current students, along with those I've taught over the past 4 years, come from homes where their parents are struggling, often working one or more low-paying jobs just to put food on the table and send their children to school with basic supplies. I'm no stranger to buying markers to distribute, keeping extra snacks in my desk, and even bringing clothes from the thrift store to keep my students warm in winter. Over the years, I've found that handling these situations on a personal level is often more effective than involving government services. I discovered that interventions from Child Protective Services can sometimes do more harm than good, and even parents who may not be doing well by their children often love them and are trying their best. I'd rather not see families torn apart, knowing how harsh the foster system can be. More than a few of my students have been in foster care, and I wouldn't wish that kind of upheaval on any 7-year-old. Despite the challenges at home, most parents genuinely care for their kids. That's why I hesitated to intervene in Charlie's situation. He was generally well-behaved, and though I knew his family was struggling, I sensed from a parent-teacher meeting that his mother was a kind woman, perhaps too young to have a 7-year-old. She worked hard cleaning houses to give him a good start in life, while his father seemed to be present only in body. Charlie always came to school neat and tidy, with his hair brushed and clothes mended, even if he carried the strong scent of his father's tobacco. The only time I had to call Charlie's parents was when he missed the bus home one day. The person who answered my call was harsh, telling me to make sure he faced the consequences of his mistakes before hanging up. That day, I ended up walking Charlie home and met his mother in the driveway as she returned from work. She seemed grateful for my help, but I thought I noticed a bruise on her cheek, though I couldn't be sure. I kept a close eye on Charlie after that, but I never saw any signs of trouble on his small, pale face. Isn't it often the case that mothers take the hits for their children? I had no reason to doubt that Charlie's mother was caring until one Monday in February when he arrived late for the first time. He looked disheveled, which was unusual for him. I approached him during morning break to check if everything was okay. He explained that his mother had forgotten to wake him up, and he missed the bus, but promised to be on time the next day. His tired face, with dark circles under his eyes, concerned me, but I reassured him that it was all right, and that I just wanted to make sure he was okay. The rest of the week was uneventful until Thursday when he shyly approached me at lunch and asked if I had any snacks. He said there was no food at home right now. I told him he could always come to me if he was hungry and kept my voice steady to avoid sounding pitying. When I asked how he and his mother were doing, he said they were okay, but added that his father had left the previous weekend and he wasn't sure if he would come back this time. I felt a pang of sympathy and placed what I hoped was a comforting hand on his shoulder, letting him know I was there to help if he needed it. He accepted a peanut butter and jelly sandwich from me and ate with the other kids. Afterward, I decided to call home to see if I could offer any support to his mother, hoping that with his volatile father gone, she might find some stability. My call went to voicemail, so I left a message explaining that I was concerned and would be bringing lunch for Charlie the following days, and I invited her to reach out if she needed anything. On Friday, I brought Charlie a ham sandwich and asked how his mother was doing. I find that boys often open up more if you ask straightforwardly. He told me that his mother played my voicemail for him and said it was kind of me to call, but she assured him that she had everything under control. I was puzzled that she had played my message for him. When I asked about it, he shrugged and said she just hadn't been able to answer the phone. Then he added that she had been shut in her room since his father left. His words made me uneasy, but I kept quiet. Although Charlie looked a bit dirtier and more tired than usual, he seemed otherwise healthy. But as the weekend passed, I found myself worrying. I even drove by his house on Saturday, hoping for signs that everything was all right. The lights were on, but I saw no sign of Charlie or his mother. The only difference from the day I walked him home in November was the absence of their old, beat-up green car in the driveway. When Monday rolled around, Charlie arrived on time, wearing the same clothes he had on Friday. My heart sank as I noticed they were obviously unwashed. I approached him to give him his lunch and caught a whiff of a strange smell, less like cigarettes, but still unpleasant and unfamiliar. Charlie, your mother never lets you come to school with unbrushed hair, I gently reminded him. She hasn't been checking, so I thought it was okay, he replied quietly. She did say to, though, I noted, realizing she hadn't come out to see him. Well, you should still listen to your mom, I advised, unsure of how else to respond. I thought about parents who drank too much, those who struggled to keep the lights on, or those who vanished like ghosts. But it was different with a mother who cared yet had fallen into deep sadness. My heart ached for her, and I wanted to speak directly to her instead of going through Charlie, who only understood part of the situation. That evening, I decided to send a letter home with him. I reiterated what I'd said in my initial call, but added that maybe Charlie could stay with a friend for a while if she needed some uninterrupted time alone. When Charlie arrived on Tuesday morning, his hair was brushed, and his clothes were clean, though mismatched. He proudly showed me his 2 different socks. My mom taught me how to do my own laundry last night, he said with excitement. That's great, I exclaimed, giving him a high five. Did you give your mom the note I sent home? I did. I put it under her door like you told me to, he beamed. I worried silently that she might not even be getting up to go to work if she was hiding away. Good job, buddy. I offered another high five, but Charlie chose to give me a hug instead, wrapping his little arms around my neck. I couldn't help but notice the familiar scent of soap on him. I hoped his mother wasn't slipping into a hoarding situation. I had dealt with that before and didn't want to again. By Wednesday, Charlie looked even more exhausted. Dark circles had formed under his eyes, and I asked him if he'd been sleeping well as I handed him his lunch. I had continued bringing him food every day, just in case. My mom keeps telling me to sleep in my own bed, he replied, but I fell asleep last night after she sang to me in her room. Oh, did you get to sleep in her bed? I asked. No, I fell asleep on the floor outside her closet, he said. Why were you on the floor? I asked, concerned. She sings to me through the closet door. Her voice is really calming, so I guess I just fell asleep there, he explained, looking worried. It's okay, Miss B. I promise I'll sleep in my own bed tonight, and I'll sleep better, he reassured me, sounding anxious. My mom says I'll be fine, I just need to help take care of her. I encouraged him and sent him off to recess, but I resolved to talk to his mother in person that day. I couldn't keep handling this discreetly. I was worried things were getting out of hand. What did he mean by singing through the closet door? That evening, I walked Charlie home. He was unusually quiet, a stark contrast to the last time we had walked together when he had entertained me with stories from Saturday morning cartoons. When we reached his front door, he fished out a key from a chain around his neck and unlocked the door, confidently pushing it open. As soon as he did, the awful smell hit me. It was the scent of decay, like a butcher shop dumpster. It wafted from the little home where he lived. Charlie walked inside as if he didn't notice the overwhelming odor, calling out for his mother. I held my jacket sleeve over my nose and stepped in behind him. Mrs. Collins? I called out hesitantly, scanning the kitchen for the source of the smell but seeing nothing. I'm sorry to intrude, I just wanted to talk to you. I forced myself to breathe through my mouth as the stench intensified. She's in here, Charlie told me, but she said I'm not allowed to go into the closet with her. Charlie, I said softly, can you go outside and sit on the sidewalk for a moment? I need to talk to your mom. Okay, he hesitated, looking back at me uncertainly. Just a minute, I reassured him with a smile, trying to hide my own fear. He left the room, glancing back a few times, and I took a deep breath before calling out again, Mrs. Collins? I approached the slatted white door of the closet, my heart racing. Mrs. Collins? I whispered, facing the door. Silence enveloped me, save for the sound of my blood rushing in my ears. I peered into the dark spaces between the wooden slats, feeling as though unseen eyes were watching me. I took a quick breath and pushed down my fear. Dread filled me as I opened the door. Are you Miss Ringer? The official asked, looking down at me while I sat on the frozen grass with my arm around Charlie. I gestured toward my shoes at the edge of the walkway. Yes, I'm the one who called. I heard the gurney clatter as the EMTs brought it through the door. I pulled Charlie closer, shielding him from the scene. Pressing my eyes shut, I had seen enough. A female officer took Charlie from me and settled him in the back of a crew vehicle. I stood on the icy grass, feeling the cold seep into my slacks. "You mentioned you spoke to his mom recently?" the officer asked, standing on the cracked pavement. "No," I replied. "Charlie talked to his mother last night. I called the house on Thursday, but she didn't answer. Everything came through him." "Okay, and when did Charlie say his father left?" "Saturday before last. I found out on Monday." I swallowed hard, the silence heavy as I watched the red and blue lights flicker against the houses. "How long do you think she was in there?" I asked. The officer sighed. The scent of Mrs. Collins still lingered in the open doorway. "My best guess? Perhaps 2 weeks." I shut my eyes but opened them quickly, haunted by memories that rushed back every time I closed them. I pictured her, eyes wide and vacant, her mouth slightly open, fingers caught in her husband's belt, looking fragile and lost. That year, I changed schools, unsure if I could endure another year so close to Charlie's home. Each day, I dreaded helping other students with their family struggles, knowing what I had witnessed that winter. I thought about Charlie's grandma, hoping he was adapting well 2 states away. I wanted to believe he was young enough to move on, far from where his father might search. The police hadn't found the man, and I hoped each day he was far away, somewhere he couldn't reach Charlie. What kind of person could leave like that, leaving a child to face such a burden? It made me feel sick with frustration and sadness. I left another letter for Charlie's mother, this time at her grave, hoping she knew he was being cared for even when she couldn't be there. God knows she tried her hardest.